Hey folks, glad to be here tonight. So first off, I'm Pat O'Callaghan, and I want to start with a confession. I'm a staff engineer, but I don't use a code editor. Haven't written a line of code in 6 months. Yet I still shipped 50% more PRs in 2025 than I did in 2024. So I'm going to bring on a bit of a journey about how I got here, some of the work we had to do here at Intercom, and also about the mindset shift myself and many others at Intercom had to undergo to get here. So I believe our jobs of engineers has fundamentally changed. So I think the sooner we embrace that, the better. So I'm in Team Frontend Tech. This is our cute little team logo. We're a team of engineers and designers, and that we act as a force multiplier for the product teams at Intercom. So we build tools and workflows that empower our teams to build and design and ship UI more efficiently. Specifically, we focus on this app, the Intercom app, and this is the app our customers log into every day to check their conversations with their customers, and maybe look at their reports and configure our AI support agent, Finn, as well as many other things. So the story tonight is in 3 parts, and it's going to cover a shift over the last 18 months. So whether you're in the middle or you're starting out or maybe you're further on, I just want to share some of our experiences here and mine and what we learned along the way. So if we go back to 18 months ago, our app is 100% built using the Ember.js framework. I don't know if anyone knows it, and it's a huge app, a few million lines of code, with 30 odd teams shipping 40 to 50 times a day. But right then, we just made the decision to adopt React as our UI framework going forward. And at this point, we weren't even thinking about like a full migration or anything like that. The job was way too big. It's going to take years. For example, the inbox, the app you can see here, this is the most used part of the applications, probably the most complex. And in our minds, this would be the last thing that we were going to migrate or work on. So that was a problem for a futurists to solve. Instead, we were just focused on adoption, giving engineers these tools so that they could start building products. So we had a lot of foundational decisions to make. Our router, how we'd handle remote data, localization, what design system we were going to use. So we were making these decisions and documenting each one. So kind of building up a playbook of how we were going to build React for our app. And during this process, like AI wasn't really a blip in my radar. GitHub Copilot was around, but it didn't really work with Ember, so I never really used it. So this process of figuring out all these things was no different than like the thousands of tasks I'd ever done already as an engineer throughout my career. So you get a problem, you research, you validate, you ship, and then you ship, and it's kind of all manual. So this is just how I got the work done. But let's jump forward to 9 months ago. So at this point, AI had worked its way into my workflow. I was using cursor chat, this side panel in my editor where they're having these conversations about code, but the code was still front and center. I was still in complete control, taking this bit, rejecting that bit. It felt integrated, and it's worth noting that like React worked way better than Ember ever did. So it just felt more fluid. Then I tried Cloud Code, and this is my first real oh shit moment. No editor, it's just a terminal, it's an input, that was it. You gave it a task, and it just worked, and you just let it work. But the thing that really got me was it felt like a conversation. It felt like it was pair programming with someone, and it was very responsive to interruptions, redirections, and it didn't get derails the way cursor chat did. And it worked on tasks like the way I worked on tasks. But even saying all that, something just didn't feel right. I was generating more code faster than I ever had, but I was spending more and more time trying to make it look like I was writing it. So I was constantly micromanaging, interrupting when I saw it did something different. Instead of using components from our design system, it was just creating its own, building its own from scratch. And the React code it was generating was just a mess of like use states and use effects. So your mind was kind of doing loops, trying to understand what it was doing. And the visual output, even though it was very impressive, like just don't look underneath. And it's no accident, 2025 is the year of slop. Merriam-Webster's word of the year. So we're inundated with horses made of bread and cat soap operas. But our code didn't escape the tag either. So one of the positives of AI in React is that it's been trained on billions of lines of React code. So any task you give it, it more than likely achieve it. But one of the negatives of AI in React is that it's been trained on billions of lines of React code. And for every good repo, it's probably seen 10 times that number of subpar or outdated ones. So I love this quote from Steve Krenzel, and it kind of sums up what happens if you let an agent loose on your code base and your code base isn't up to standard. And at this point, only 1 or 2 teams were using React, and they were just building net new features. Nobody was migrating anything. We have a feature called Copilot, which is our support agents use. It's kind of an AI assistant in the inbox. Our CTO, Dara, tried to migrate this using AI. It was a spectacular failure. Thousands of lines of code, super complex, didn't work. Tried to salvage it, but we just made the call to drop it. It wasn't worthwhile. So the tools weren't ready yet. And now in the wider industry, there's this shift to what everyone knows as vibe coding. But its focus seemed to be entirely on the visual and functional output, not on how it was achieved. And in an existing production application, just didn't seem to fly. So Brian is one of our principal engineers, said it best with this quote. So we're trying to ship a high quality product, but we also want to withhold or uphold like engineering standards of simplicity, maintainability, reliability. And we're still engineers, but just with fancier tools in our toolbox. So how do we make it stay within the lines? So we learned a lot throughout this, but I'll cover 3 tonight anyway. So first, teach the agent your standards. Secondly, try and close the design to code gap. And 3, let the agent check its own work. So the agent could write React, but it couldn't write our React. So remember all those architectural decisions we'd figured out before, our playbook for how to write React, we just fed them to the agent. Started with Claude MD files, this persistent context that the agent used every time, every session. So we codified our tech stack choices, our patterns and conventions into these guidance files. But guidance files alone only get you so far. We built skills on top, reusable instructions for specific workflows. So we've got skills for writing good components, writing tests, for localization, for data loading. And these are just markdown files, really easy to write, really easy to share. And yeah, the agent, you either evoke them or the agent just knows when to invoke them and uses them. And a key lesson though is none of this is set and forget. You constantly tweak them. When you see the agent doing the wrong thing, you need to update the guidance so that it doesn't repeat that same mistake again. So Boris Cherny, he's the creator of Cloud Code, and says the team at Anthropic, they change their Cloud files like multiple times a week, and directly from PRs and GitHub when they see it making a mistake in their PRs. And then to scale this across the org, our leaders stood up a dedicated team called Team 2X. And these were focused on making everyone more productive with these tools. So they distributed foundations we could all build upon. So MCP servers, default settings, shareable tools. And this is so everyone using Cloud Code at Intercom benefits. So the agent knew our conventions, but the handover from design to engineering was still a point of friction. So Figma offers a MCP server that's pretty good out of the box. You point it at a design, it can recreate it almost perfectly. The problem was the code it generated wasn't useful to us. Visually looked fine, but it wasn't using our components. It was building them all from scratch. So we were spending time either reworking PRs or we were just ditching them entirely. So we integrated Figma's Code Connect feature directly into Surge, which is our design system. And this links the Figma designs directly to the real components in our repo. All the features, all the props from the component. So when the Figma MCP build a design now, it uses our actual components. So the code looks like an engineer actually built it. And this has seen a massive reduction in churn. But guidance alone isn't enough. Even with all your conventions documented or your skills created, agents will still go off script. So one problem we kept having was we had a heavily customized Tailwind config. which was based on our design system. But the agent kept always wanting to use the Tailwind defaults, which it's probably trained on. So we just simply added a lint rule that checks against our config and makes sure that it doesn't throw an error, add a class that isn't in our config. So you just need to give agents the ability to check their own work. Without this, you're either babysitting the agent or spending time cleaning up at the end, and that's just toil. So we built a quality check skill that runs lint type checking and tests in parallel on every commit, only on changed files, heavily cached, so it runs in seconds. And for longer tasks, the agent verifies itself at each step, each checkpoint. And this dramatically improves the chances that it's going to run successfully to the end with high quality code. So the principle here is simple. You hold the agent to your quality bar, and its work isn't done until it meets your bar. So that brings us to where we are now. A few months into after starting to make these investments. So how are things looking? So 9 months ago, around 100 React PRs landed in a single month. This month, I checked today, we're at 890 over 890 PRs just in February with just React PRs. And the ratio is flipped. React PRs now outnumber Ember 2-to-1, and 66 engineers shipped React last week. 9 months ago, that was in single digits. Over 75% of those are now AI generated. And that's a lot of AI generated codes, but the foundations are landing. Patterns, conventions, using our design system, but there's still a lot of work to do. But the rework from all the hallucinations that was happening all the time 9 months ago, that's mostly gone. And it isn't just designers, engineers, designers are using these tools now. We'll hear from Daria later, but building prototypes, designing with codes, creating their own skills, shipping code to production. So this is Domingo, he's a designer on Team Frontend Tech, and he was on the Sneak Peek Design podcast the other day. If you want to hear more about it, he's talking about this workflow. But right now, I'm going to show you a video from another one of our designers, Vitor. In the video, he's building in our prototyping hub, which we built, and this is directly in our production code base. So he's taking the design straight from Figma and getting Claude Code to build it. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, so we have a prototyping skill that sets up the designers with their own page in the app. They can experiment with these designs. They can see how they feel with actual code in the UI. They can push these to production and share them with other people so that they can get feedback. And basically, yeah, so now when there's building components, it's using Figma Code Connect, so that it's actually using our actual components. So here it's built a design. Now he's going to add some interactivity. So he just wants to introduce a drop-down that will now show this drawer opening up from the side. So this code that Vitor created sits alongside our production code. So it works, use the same components, has the same quality checks, and it follows our conventions. So it looks like an engineer wrote it. The prototype might end up being thrown in the bin, or maybe if it's useful enough, maybe hand it over to an engineer who will productionize it and ship it. And remember the Copilot migration? Well, Dara went back last month. He tried it again, worked in it between meetings for a day or two, and he got it working. Not perfect, but working. And his reaction was, and I'm quoting Dara here, so it's the same feature, same person, but a dramatically different outcome this time. There's a 6 months in the difference. And at the start of the talk, I mentioned the inbox, the most complex, heavily used part of our app. We always said it would be the last thing we do, but now we're actually migrating it first. So up until now, we've just been building out net new features, but we're really confident in our harness to be able to automate a bunch of these feature migrations. So the hard part is ours, it's still ours, like understanding the data shapes, figuring out the right patterns, resolving ambiguity. But once that's clear and the migration becomes well-defined, that's where the agents take over. So we wrote a skill for it. It reads the existing Ember features and backend APIs, builds a full picture of how it works, then creates a specification, breaks it down. Then you can spin up a team of agents, 3, 4, 5 at a time, each in its own Git work tree for isolation. And each one picks apart the feature, builds the React version, runs quality checks, creates the PR, pushes it up to CI, and yeah, if CI fails, it'll fix the failure, and it doesn't stop until it's green. And we also have a verification skill that compares the new React version back to the original Ember implementation. So if it finds stuff is missing, we'll fix those in the next batch. So we're only a few weeks in, but we're aiming to migrate the inbox completely in a few months. So these tools they're compounding. Just the last 2 model updates in the last few months alone have brought noticeable step changes in what's possible. So right now is the worst they'll ever be. But we haven't got it all figured out. Like scaling this fast creates its own problems. So CI gets constantly hammered. Like one day in February, we hit 900 CI runs just for this UI app. Also, PR reviews become a bottleneck. You're generating all these PRs, but someone has to review them, which is actually what Kesha is going to be talking about later. So what does my job actually look like now? Day to day, my tools are Claude Code, I have a Markdown viewer to review plans, and I post comments on GitHub PRs to tell the agents to fix them. That's it, like no IDE. I haven't written a line of code in 6 months. Most of my time now goes into planning, understanding the problem, research, and making decisions. And my research flow is workflow is supercharged. I'll regularly give multiple agents the same problem, get each of them come up with a solution. Then I'll have another agent review all their solutions, give me a summary and a recommendation which he thinks is the best one, and I'll take that forward and see if it needs more work. There's also change what I'm willing to take on. Every engineer has a backlog of things that they'd love to explore, but they just don't have the time. So maybe rethink something like this OX lint spike I did recently. So before, these ideas just sat there. But now I'll spin up a session, go back and forth on the plan. An hour or two, you have a working spike, and that tells me enough whether it's worth pursuing or not. So I'm making better decisions because I can cheaply explore options which I couldn't really do before. Even on call has changed. So last month we had a spike in exceptions, couldn't explain, pointed an agent at it, used or observed the MCP servers, pulled the errors from Sentry, spotted a timing pattern of like 1 to 3 seconds in bursts, it cross-referenced that data with Honeycomb, traced it back, figured out that was specifically with certain routes. It then traced the code back into the code. It traced it to a race condition in some polling task and proposed a 4-line fix. Didn't write a line of code. I didn't open a single dashboard. I just reviewed the fix and shipped it. But I'll be honest, it hasn't been a comfortable shift. When you spent your career writing code, not writing code feels like you're kind of losing a part of yourself. So I struggled with that at times. But code was always a means to an end, and it was never the hardest part of the job. The hardest part was figuring out what to build and why, and that's still my job. So I'm just not the one typing it anymore. One of Intercom's principles is shape the solution. The idea that engineers should be helping design what gets built and not just implementing it. And I feel like I do that more efficiently and effectively now. So I want to leave you with a challenge. Tomorrow, close your IDE just for the day. Use Claude Code, use Codex, but don't open your editor. So take a task, write a plan. Then once you're happy, let it work. It will be uncomfortable, things will break, and you'll reach for your editor out of habit, but that's fine. But pay attention to what breaks, because that's exactly where you should be investing your time. That's your Claude MD file that needs updating. That's the skill that's missing. And that's the verification loop that you haven't built yet. So I think our job as engineers has fundamentally changed. So I say embrace it. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Questions? Do you want to run around with a mic?
Thank you very much for that talk. I have a bit of maybe a silly question. I'm just wondering, how did the Intercom actually approach going from Ember to React in terms of your existing engineers? Did they have already a certain level of expertise in React, or was it a level of a question of upskilling? Because eventually you'd have to check the AI's work and see, are they doing the best practices? Is this the right way of doing things? So I'm just wondering, how did you?
Yeah, no, great question. I think like that is a big part of it. You can't just expect that if you're changing your stack that everyone is just going to be, oh great, this is great. Like and this is definitely the whole messy middle part. Kesh is going to talk specifically around this problem, because our problem was figuring out quality, people not knowing what quality was. I think there's a human aspect and a technological aspect. It isn't all just about the tools. So we did, like, as a team, we did like lots of like learning sessions, workshops, you know, giving people all the material they wanted. We did working sessions, but then we gave them access to like front-end masters, all this stuff. So there's that element that people need to know as well what they're doing, especially moving from Ember to React, quite different. But then definitely a part of it was maybe like React experts aren't distributed evenly across the org. So like what happens there, and our team is a small team, we can't review all the PRs. So this is where Kesh, he's going to touch on this, and the stuff, the work they did was really helpful. So kind of PR reviews and stuff like that. Yeah, good question though. Yeah.
So thanks. That was great. Thank you very much. I've just got a quick question about your interaction with design.
Yeah.
So I assume one day they came and said, hey, can I have access to the code base, please? So what pains did you go through onboarding, I guess, a new cohort of engineers and teaching them how to become engineers?
Yeah, like I think there's it might even be a better question for Daria when she gets up here. But yeah, like I do know there was a lot of difficulty and churn at the start, because like obviously our developer environments were really set up for engineers. Oh, this is broke. Oh, just go and just jump in the terminal and run this command and all this. So over time, we've got much better at that, and that the docs and even like some of the designers on our team built scripts, use Claude to build scripts to make the experience much more fluid, like onboarding and stuff. So yeah, there was a massive jump. Like just even like giving the terminal to people is a kind of like fairly daunting experience. But yeah, like it's not free. You have to kind of work with it. The talk I reference in the in my talk there, Domingo, he kind of touches on that as well. But it is a frequent question. Like I think every time we've given the talk about the prototyping hub, people will go, "You let designers in your production code?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's grand." Yeah. So,
cool. We probably have time for one more question.
I just recommend doing it, but you need to figure out how to get there. Yeah.
Oh. It sounds like you're doing a lot of migration work. So do you also build new features? Because with the migration, you have like a working example that the AI can use. So is there a difference when you're between those two paradigms?
So like all the React stuff we've been doing up until a few weeks ago was actually just new features. And it's only now in the last few weeks where we've seen this like step change in ability, and you know, just everything kind of coming together where like actually we can migrate. So but we're using like all the existing codes as a way to point it like this is where you should be going. Like generally before the migration stuff is happening, there's still a human, we're still figuring out, okay, this is how we want things to look, this is how things should be architected. But then when it's just a matter of these are all the patterns here, these are the tasks, just let the agents go then. Yeah. I think I answered your question, or maybe I didn't. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, grand.
Big round of applause for Pat, everyone. Yeah.